Hello and welcome. I'm Suma Katauka and you're watching World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. The UK Labour government says it will end automatic benefits for asylum seekers as part of a push to cut irregular migration. The Interior Ministry says the overhaul will follow Denmark's strict immigration model. China says its Coast Guard has patrolled waters around the Japan-controlled Senkaku Islands amid soaring tensions over Tokyo's Taiwan comments. Beijing insists the islands are its territory as tensions between Tokyo and Beijing's rise. President Zelensky says Ukraine is working to resume prisoner exchanges with Russia, seeking the return of about 1,200 Ukrainians. Security Chief Rustem Umerov says talks have been held in Turkey and the UAE with support from allies. Israel has launched new strikes east of Khan Yunis and in Gaza City's Zaytun area. Even inside the so-called Yellow Line, Gaza health officials say Israel has now returned 330 bodies since the ceasefire as families face worsening conditions and winter hardships. Israel's High Court will decide today who oversees the SDE Taimon leak investigation after the bitter power struggle between Justice Minister Yariv Levin and Attorney General Gali Baharav Miara. Judges may appoint a retired Supreme Court justice as both sides refuse to compromise. At least 120 people, mostly police, were injured as thousands protested President Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico City. Clashes erupted when hooded youths threw projectiles, prompting police to respond. Authorities say 20 people were arrested. Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri says Hezbollah has the right to rebuild itself and has not fired a shot since last year's ceasefire. He accuses Israel of violating the deal while denying any weapons smuggling into Lebanon. A public feud has erupted between President Trump and Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene after he branded her wacky and a traitor. Greene has questioned whether Trump still puts America first as the House prepares to vote on releasing the Epstein files. Now we start with Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine is actively working to restart its prisoner exchange program with Russia, targeting the release of around 1,200 Ukrainian captives. President Volodymyr Zelensky, speaking on Telegram, said the government is devoting many meetings, calls and negotiations to this effort. His Security Council Chief Rustem Umerov has confirmed that consultations were held in Turkey and the United Arab Emirates with the support of international partners to revive the process under the Istanbul Agreements of 2022. These agreements set the framework for large coordinated swaps, though past exchanges have often been disrupted by frontline escalation. Umerov has added that discussions on procedural and organizational details are ongoing, with the aim of allowing Ukrainians in captivity to celebrate New Year and Christmas with their families. Moscow has not yet commented on Kyiv's announcement. Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Georgy Toloraya. He's a professor of Russia Academy of Science, Moscow. Joins us live from Moscow. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Professor, now looking at this, how does Russia assesses the feasibility of restarting the prisoner exchange?
You know, that's a little bit strange for me because this is quite a regular procedure. I don't see any much of a news in it actually, and I don't understand why Zelensky would announce, which is a regular practice. It's been stopped for some time because the Ukrainians were sometimes not ready to perform exchanges, but as far as I know, Russia is always ready to do this, and this has been our position. And I haven't heard any comments from Moscow or announcements, so we have to look what's behind it. Of course, it's a normal practice. It's a good thing, and I don't see why it should be propagated as a sort of a peaceful initiative by Ukraine. It's a normal practice, not much of a deal. But it's a good thing if any kind of Istanbul process, any kind of negotiation would resume, because, as I've said many times, the only way to end the war are negotiations and some kind of a peace deal, which is to be agreed on between Russia and Ukraine. And Ukraine, so far, they don't want to negotiate. If they change their mind on this particular topic, if it's the first step towards a broader negotiation, that's good. If it's some kind of a, propaganda efforts, so we have to look.
Right. Talking about propaganda effort, do you think that Zelensky decided to make this POW exchange sound big to keep up the morale of his soldiers?
As far as I know, there's a lot of desertions, and there's lots of Ukrainian soldiers surrendering to Russian troops, and Ukraine was to prevent it. So maybe that's some kind of a propaganda aimed at its own troops. I don't know. So far, not enough information about this particular initiative.
And what role does the involvement of international partners like Turkey and UAE play in influencing or pressuring these exchange negotiations?
Well, as I said, there's no need to pressure Russia, and I understand that both the neutral partners, such as Turkey, they just provide the venue for the meetings, and I do not know if they should interfere too deeply, because this is a deal which can be done by both sides, by warring parties. Right. As I said, this is not something new, not something that is not known before, and it has been stopped, which is a pity, but it's not a big change.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Georgi Toloraya, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this region. Now, President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced Ukraine will receive gas imports from Greece this winter. He has said that Kyiv has prepared an agreement with Greece to create an additional gas supply route, strengthening Ukraine's energy security as Russia intensifies strikes on power and gas infrastructures. Zelensky has stated that Ukraine has already secured financing for nearly 2 billion euros to cover gas imports and compensate for domestic production losses caused by Russian attacks. Funding will come from European partners and banks, backed by European Commission guarantees, as well as Ukrainian banks, with additional support being coordinated with the United States. He has also noted that Ukraine is expanding its winter supply options through Polish partners, working with Azerbaijan, and aiming to secure long-term contracts to stabilize energy supplies. This is what he has said.
Вже на сьогодні підготували домовленість з Грецією по газу для України. Це буде ще один напрямок постачання газу, щоб убезпечити максимально на зиму маршрути імпорту газу для України. Вже є у нас домовленості про фінансування імпорту газу, і ми закриємо потребу майже 2 мільярди євро на імпорт газу, щоб компенсувати втрати українського видобутку через Росію.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Professor Georgi Toloraya. He's a professor of Russia Academy of Science, joins us live from Moscow. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Professor, looking at this, how does Russia assess the role of European backed financing in enabling Ukraine to mitigate the attacks of Russia on for energy production?
Yeah, it's true that Russia started finally on its fourth year in war. It's started to attack the energy infrastructure, which I think should have been earlier. But we have taken out nearly 60% of the gas production in Ukraine. And Ukraine has stopped Russian transit gas from which we used to get the gas before. So it's funny that as a result they have to buy actually the same Russian gas from Europe. It goes first to Bulgaria or Romania, whatever, or for Turkey, and then through a lot of intermediaries, a lot of schemes involving many companies, some run companies, some serious companies, but when it finally gets to Ukraine, it's several times more dear than the original price, and this profit goes to these European intermediaries probably. So that's a good deal from Europe, and it's a good deal for Ukraine because they don't pay with their own money; they pay by European money, which they squeeze out of Europe or out of EC. So it means that in fact the EC is paying to the European companies for Ukraine, and some of it goes into corrupt channels of Ukrainian government, of course. So this is, I think it's a deal which is profitable to all involved, but not so good for the population, because they have to pay much more for the gas and for the energy. As for Greece, this I know that Zelensky has rushed to Greece, where he wants to find some support in anti-aircraft equipment and other weapons, and among this is also this deal with the gas. So it probably, Greece doesn't produce that much gas, and so it would actually be just Greek gas, just a name, because it will go first to Bulgaria and then to Ukraine, and that will be eventually that will partly, at least for a big part, Russian gas. So that's how the modern global, so-called global economy works.
Also, Professor, are you saying that Ukraine is buying Russian gas from indirectly from Greece?
In fact, the main source is still Russia, which goes to the southern Europe through different channels, for Turkey, for other channels, and then part of it goes to Ukraine. There's no label on it. There's no, price tag that it's from Russia, but eventually Russia still remains the biggest gas producer in this area.
And do you think that Ukrainian people or people in Europe know about the supply chain?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure this is much researched or much publicized in Europe. But, well, actually, if you come to think of it, then you have to find out where it comes from. Partly the gas to Europe from as a liquefied gas from the US and other markets, but if you speak about natural gas, that's usually Russian gas.
How do you think this?
Or sometimes from Central Asia and Azerbaijan, but that's a smaller part.
Yes. So how do you think this, indirectly coming from these gas that's indirectly coming from Russia, but through Greece, Poland, Azerbaijan, alter Ukraine's regional energy dynamics or shift regional energy dynamics?
Of course, it shifts the energy dynamics, but as I said, I haven't made any special research on this, so I cannot state it as a scholar, as a researcher. But from as far as I know, as far as I understand, this kind of commerce, it mostly brings profit to certain European elites who are involved in this business.
Yeah, thank you.
And of course to Ukrainian officials who are well known for their corruption.
Can you tell us more about the corruption, that even the scandal that's ongoing? Do you think this is all connected with this newly announced deal with Greece?
I don't think it is connected, and the corruption in Ukraine is a well-known fact, and it's been going on for years. This new particular case, I don't know why it got publicized. There's some kind of internal struggle inside the Ukrainian elite, and maybe also with the support of the West, in order to change dynamic in the power elite. So it should be taken as a sign of this political process, rather than something unexpected that couldn't have been unearthed earlier. I don't think it's connected in any way to this gas deal, but I think that knowing how the Ukrainian state and officials, how they work, how corrupt they are, I'm sure that also will be some kind of corruption involved in the final run when if the deal goes through.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor, for connecting all this and sharing that insight on this topic. Thank you very much, Professor Georgi Toleraya. Now we move on to Middle East. According to local Israeli media, the Trump administration is reportedly considering dropping its requirement that Hamas be disarmed before Gaza reconstruction begins, due to difficulties securing commitments from foreign governments willing to join a stabilization force. This potential shift has led to a deadlock with Israel, which insists that Gaza must be demilitarized before any rebuilding can occur, in line with Trump's original 20-point plan. The U.S. is set to push a UN Security Council vote on Monday on a resolution authorizing a temporary international stabilization force in Gaza through 2027. Countries willing to contribute troops have demanded such a UN mandate. Anticipating passage, Israel has begun preparing for the arrival of thousands of foreign soldiers. However, most potential ISF participants say they are unwilling to enforce Hamas disarmament, agreeing only to serve as peacekeepers. Israeli officials warn that delaying demilitarization is dangerous, saying Hamas has been regaining strength since the ceasefire took effect early October. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ali Mohammed Abushbak. He is a Middle East researcher, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Ali, for joining us again. Good to see you. Ali, what more can you tell us about what is happening with ISF and upcoming phase 2 and the demilitarization of Hamas as well? And can you tell us how popular is Hamas among Palestinians in Gaza right now?
Thank you so much for having me. The situation on the ground, in fact, there is a several of a change. And last week that Washington Post revealed that there is a talk between American administration as well as Hamas. And there is a meeting that it's going to be organized between Hamas and Witkoff. So this transformation between the relation between Hamas and America, and that could be referred to that is going Hamas to tight a relation with America, and this talk between America and Hamas that's giving Hamas authorization in Gaza and as a authentic representative for Palestinian people. There is a several of change. Maybe we will witness like what happened with Ahmad al-Shara in Syria after he was a terrorist and he was in America as a black name and as also a terrorist. Now he become a peace person, and he's going to be handled with Israel and with America and supported by supported by Donald Trump. I guess this kind of talk, and I guess what is happening now, the White House going to accept Hamas on the ground, maybe that we will see it again. And especially we are talking about there is still disagreement between America and Israel and the peace forces or stabilization forces in Gaza. Up to now is not solved. Tomorrow is going the United Security Council is going to vote on this kind of force and duty of this force, what is will be. And up to now, most of the country they want approval and they want guarantee from the United Security Council to start work in Gaza. Most of the country participating in this and involved in these forces are accepting to be as a peacekeeping forces, not to disarm Hamas. I guess also it's It's a realistic idea. After Donald Trump, he considered this is idealistic idea to disarm Hamas. We have a typical example, Hezbollah. We are going to 1 year after the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. One of the significant terms to disarm Hezbollah from this it's a weapon, and we have seen up to now it's not solved the issue, and that will complicate the situation. That's it. Donald Trump, he go through that temporary solution that accepting Hamas and the reconstruction Gaza, and then after that they are going to negotiate about the disarm Hamas. Especially we are talking about the second phase of negotiation and a plan. It's still deadlock, and there is no negotiation about it. And up to now, the first phase is not completely applied, and the implement of it is still late. Especially we are talking about Israel still locked the border between Gaza and Egypt, and still Israel controlled the humanitarian aids which want to enter Gaza. Up to now, there is a lack in food in Gaza. So that's make it a situation more incredible, and I guess Donald Trump now become in this this reality that that a significant point should be reconstruction in Gaza, and we then after that we will talk about who's governing Gaza and who's will be representing Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu, he considered these things as a red line about Hamas weapon and about the power of Hamas. He said Hamas should be erased as to promote and to stimulate his victory in the war. Otherwise, he did nothing. He just only destroyed Gaza. Hamas is still exists. Hamas is still has a power, but he waged a war without any goal, without any outcome. That's it. Benjamin
Yes.
Netanyahu is rejecting and declined such kind of notion and idea. Should be Hamas disarmed on the ground. I guess Hamas is not going to accept it.
And Ali, as you also rightfully mentioned, that leaders have started to realistically rethink about demilitarizing Hamas because is it because there's no other power over there or no other organization that can legitimately govern Gaza right now towards lasting peace? And also, do you think demilitarization of Hamas is feasible?
I guess this is not a logical thing. I said we have a typical example about Hezbollah. Up to now, it's not going to disarm. And if you will look at the history, there is no any kind of a militant revolution disarmed and withdraw from the atmosphere or from the landscape like this. So about ruling Gaza, that talk about the Palestinian Authority, this is also not realistic. Especially we are talking about the socio-political fragmentation between Gaza and Israel and West Bank, as well as since 2007 up to now, the Palestinian Authority is not empowered in Gaza. Similar things also in West Bank. Still at the Benjamin Netanyahu regime and his government, they are trying to weakness the Palestinian Authority in West Bank without any kind of empowerment there. And that's make it a more incredible. And we have witnessed several of action and accident happened in West Bank. One of the significant things during the peace process, who was negotiating about the future of Gaza? It was Hamas, not the Palestinian Authority. So that's make it more complicated the situation. Palestinian Authority has no any representation, no any any exist in the frame or any exist in the landscape. As a de facto situation, Hamas only ruling Gaza, and Hamas has the only power in Gaza. What is happening that about the stabilization forces? I guess just only it will monitor the peace process, and they will be monitor who's going to violated the ceasefire. It's not going to disarm Hamas. Especially we are talking about maybe Egypt and several of Arab countries. They are going to participate in these forces. And if they are going to disarm Hamas, it will make a crisis for them in their countries. The public opinion in Arab area, they are supporting the Palestinian resistance and the Palestinian struggle against Israel. And according to international law, the Palestinians, any country resist the occupation has a right to resist it, or any country under the occupation has a right to resist the occupation and end the occupation, except in the Palestinian case it's prohibited for that because of the double standard. So the thing is here more complicated, I guess. Also we have seen the statement of Indonesia and Turkey and the several of countries. They are not going to participate and indulge involved in such kind of process. Also.
Yes, thank you, Ali, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, has stated on a recent social media post that Israel will not allow a Palestinian state to emerge. He has also said the IDF will maintain positions on Mount Hermon and within the security zone. Katz has added that Gaza will be fully de-Hamased, targeting tunnels and disarming Hamas. He has also said that Hamas will be disarmed in the yellow zone by the IDF and in old Gaza by either an international force or the IDF. Now we go back to welcoming Ali Mohammed Abushbak. He's a Middle East researcher, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Ali, for staying with us. Now, as we were just talking and discussing how unrealistic it is for all the parties involved, and you mentioned that Netanyahu is pushing this because in the end he declared to finish Hamas and then he has not done it. How might Israel's explicit rejection of future Palestinian state, how do you think this is affecting regional diplomacy, also the international efforts to a long-term political solution there? And what political implications arise from IDF maintaining control over Mount Hermon and some security zones, or a lot of zones in Gaza?
So Usama, it's worth mentioning that Israel is acting like a cunning on the ground. We have seen the scandal about 120 Palestinian deported from Gaza to South Africa, how that's Israel facilitated, and there is still the investigation is still ongoing, but most of the accusation it's toward Israel that facilitated the deport of 120 civilians from Gaza to landed in South Africa illegally. So that's showing the cure goal for Israel to facilitate the deport of civilians from Gaza and expelled Gaza from the civilians and reoccupied Gaza, what Smotrich and Benefir's plan to reoccupy Gaza and restructured the settlement in Gaza Strip. And kick the Palestinian out Gaza. So this is the significant aim for the Israeli settler and some Israelis ministry in this right-wing government and far right-wing government. So the thing is here, it's still the conflict is still exists on the ground, but now it's in soft power rather than the hard power or harsh power like a weapon. In my opinion, Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to manipulate the Israeli the local audience and the community for the coming election. Especially, we are talking next week. Next year there is a parliament election. Otherwise, Benjamin Netanyahu will be in the jail because of the corruption trail against him. As well as Benjamin Netanyahu, he's called by the International Criminal Court. So that's it, he's trying to take such kind of war for his benefit. And the Israeli minister, he's talking about erase Hamas. I guess it's not realistic because we have seen after killing also in Ansarullah al-Houthi in Yemen and Iran, one of the significant aims for the war in Iran, it was not only the nuclear weapon, it was also to change the regime, up to now failed. it's not realistic on the ground. I mean, even in Americans' war in Afghanistan before, it was to finish Taliban's rule in Afghanistan.
Yes.
But now Afghanistan ruling by Taliban, and there is an
Yes.
agreement between
100%.
Taliban and also.
Yes. With that, I would like to thank Ali Muhammad Abushbak for joining us and sharing that insight as a Middle East researcher from Cairo. Thank you very much, Ali. Now we move on to Mexico. Thousands of people across Mexico have taken to the streets under the banner of Generation Z to protest rising violence after the public killing of an anti-crime mayor earlier this month. In Mexico City, demonstrators tore down fences around the National Palace, where President Claudia Sheinbaum lives, triggering clashes with riot police who responded with tear gas. Authorities say 100 police officers and 20 civilians were injured in the confrontation. Protests have also spread to cities nationwide, including Michoacan, where anger has grown over the murder of Uruapan Mayor Carlos Manzo, who was shot dead during a public Day of the Dead event. Itself, Generation Z in Mexico, organized the demonstrations, claiming in a circulating manifesto that it is nonpartisan and represents young people tired of violence, corruption, and abuse of power. Let's in fact listen into what some protesters have shared.
Salimos a marchar porque exigimos justicia y porque los jóvenes estamos hartos y queremos un futuro bien para nuestros hijos y para las próximas generaciones. Tal vez la generación pasada no lo hizo de la mejor manera, pero estamos listos y creo que es el momento de nosotros también.
Creo que los jóvenes somos el futuro de la política y pues por lo que hemos estado pasando en estos días y en esta semana hemos sido censurados por el mismo gobierno en estas marchas. Entonces pues nosotros tenemos esperanza de que como jóvenes en algún momento nosotros lleguemos al cargo político y podamos cambiar esto desde adentro y desde afuera. Por lo menos vamos a seguir luchando en las calles y en el territorio que es donde es la oficina.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.